Hi, I'm Chanie Gluck, and you are listening to Growing Global. I am passionate about helping entrepreneurs grow and scale their business. I've been an entrepreneur for over 2 decades. I built my own businesses, sold a business, and continue to leverage the global economy. Growing Global is about educating, inspiring, and motivating entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs on how to take yourself and your business to the next level. I am pleased to have Matt Phillips with us today. Matt is the founder and CEO of Pro Athlete Advantage. He now consults companies on building high-performance teams that crush their strategic and financial goals, focused on the one true differentiator, mental toughness. Matt is a former professional baseball player and Division I baseball player in the United States. Combined with his extensive background in operations, sales, and accounting in the United States and Europe, Matt teaches business leaders and teams how to systematically break through the mental roadblocks that naturally arise in their daily grind and hold them back from realizing their potential.
How are you? Thanks for having me.
Great to have you with us. Okay, so I know you met one of my colleagues at an HFMA event. She thought you'd be a great guest for our podcast. You know, Growing Global, we like to have people on that inspire and motivate our listeners to be the best versions of themselves. And so what I liked about your background is this is what you do. You get people into a good headspace.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about your history and how you got to this point of coaching business leaders.
Yeah, it's interesting. So two kind of quick stories stick out. One is, I'll tell you the original reason I started this entire company 7.5 years ago. It originally was to help athletes transition to life after sports. That was the original intent of it. And obviously it's transformed a little bit as I've dug in, but it really started when I was a freshman in college. Baseball was my sport, grew up playing. That was always my go-to. And I went off to college not being recruited by that university and just showed up and, figured I'd try out and make the team and all would be hunky-dory. And the kind of short story of it is that I was cut after 2 days of tryouts and I went through a pretty bad depression because what I discovered kind of later on was that I had wrapped up my entire self-worth, my entire identity in one thing, which happened to be a sport. And it was devastating to me when I got cut because it's like you took the whole, like everything important about Matt Phillips and you took it and threw it away and it was gone and disappeared and I don't know who I was. And I'm very, very thankful that happened to me because I'm again, very thankful that about 2 months into just some bad behavior, poor decisions, drinking a lot, just grades starting to slip, all these sorts of things as I was trying to rediscover who I was. I got a C on a paper from a political science class. And I still remember to this day sitting in that administration building at Creighton University, seeing that grade and then having these kind of gut check moments and asking myself in that moment really tough questions of, is this really like where you're going to go? Is this the path you're choosing? Is this the legacy that you're going to leave? I mean, some really deep things. And I remember committing at that point that I wasn't going to drink alcohol from that moment on and started redefining who I was. And it was just very instrumental for me because I think we all at certain points, whether it's a job, whether it's a relationship, maybe it's starting a business, whether it goes well or not, maybe it's a sport for certain people, right? We all have these kind of identity crises that happen at different points. And if we're not aligned with who we are at a core level, it can be really difficult situations to navigate. And so that was, I transformed myself. I started lifting 5 days a week, got involved in all these intramural sports. My grades shot up immediately after I made this decision, sitting in that desk. And lo and behold, short story is I tried out for the team sophomore year out on a dare from a friend. Had not touched a baseball in a year, ended up making the team, playing for the next 3 years. And then that opened up this professional opportunity over in Europe for me. But just completely changed my perspective. So originally I started this whole business of like, okay, I'm going to help athletes go through that transition, because all athletes go through the transition, whether some extreme, some it's not a big deal, but it's so relatable to, again, I've also been in the corporate world. I've had my own business. I've done all these things outside of that, but I've been strong to my core ever since that day. And the baseball just became a thing that I didn't define who I was. Just like this business doesn't define who I am. It's just a thing that I happen to do. That job I used to have in corporate America was just something that I did. So that was really kind of the start of it. And obviously transformed, because what pulled me through was everything in between my ears. It was my mindset. It was the thoughts going on in my head, the emotions that were triggering from it. So that's why today I talk about, helping people, become high performers, have a strong mindset, be mentally tough, be, resilient, however you want to describe it. That's what I do today. But the other kind of quick thing I'll share is, because I did start in the corporate world. I've lived here in the US. I lived in Switzerland for a number of years, worked for a bunch of Fortune 500 companies in various roles, from accounting to operations. And it was one of those things, to be honest, where I still remember vividly, I felt like I was always looking for the next thing. Like I'd get a job and it'd be fine for a couple months, and then like the newness would wear off, and then I'd be looking, okay, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? Like there's got to be something better than this. And sitting in this cubicle or office. And so it started me down this path to explore and just be curious of like, what impact do I want to make? What would the next step be? What is possible in my life? And it just slowly formed over time. And I started thinking about this business probably 11 plus years ago, and officially launched it 7.5 years ago. And just because I believe we're all put on this earth to make a big difference, and me sitting in a cubicle or office, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it there. I had to be somewhere else, and it's led me to exactly what I do today.
That's awesome. That's a good story. So talk to me more about how to not tie your identity to what you do, because it's so easy as entrepreneurs to do that. No, and it's,
one thing I found was, and one thing I do with clients all the time, it's like, what is your core, right? What's really important to you? And getting back to the basics of, right, what are the principles and values, and what are the behaviors and actions and reactions that are defining your daily decisions? And it's helping people project, okay, this is the person I want to be. This is how I want to be remembered. As morbid as that sounds, right? Well, what do you want people to say about you at your funeral? But it's getting to that core level of like, okay, this is the person I'm trying to be, and I'm becoming, and I'm working on a daily basis. And I'm going to fall off track, but I'm going to get back on. But this is who I'm striving to be. And then once you understand that, if just really basic, how you want to treat people, I want to be full of integrity, like all these things, that I get back up after I've been knocked down, like all these things we can write down and see in front of us and recite every day. What you do just starts to become something that you do. It doesn't change who you are.
So what happens to people that sell their companies and their whole identity was tied to their business, and now they're like searching for the next thing? What advice would you give someone like that?
That's such a great point. I always go back to, what did you like about like working in that environment? Like what gave you energy? And once you kind of, again, make it very simple of, a lot of times I hear from especially entrepreneurs who've grown businesses of, I love the build phase, right? Or I love the ideation phase, and then let somebody else build it. I mean, everybody's slightly different in where they gain energy, but it's get back to that core of like, what did you really truly enjoy? What got you fired up and excited every day to wake up? A lot of people make a lot of money. That's great. It's usually not the money. It's about building a team or building a product or creating a product, doing all these things. But once you understand what that is, then you can figure out, okay, then how do we start replicating that in different areas, right? How do we go find something new, build something new, like whatever it is, but position these individuals in a successful place where they can then replicate that, even though it might look a bit different, feel a bit different.
So I know you also have a podcast, and I listened to some of it where you talked about mental toughness.
Yes.
Describe to us the confidence, focus, control, energy stuff.
Yes. So one, the way I lead in speeches and working with people all the time is that, so there's some concepts out there that when they're said to us, at least for me, like, I don't know what they mean. Or there's so many definitions, it's like overwhelming. So I at that women's and leadership event where I met your colleague, one of the things I brought up was, if I were to walk into your office today or into your home and tell you, be a great leader today, and then I turn around and walk out, you would be left most likely with like these questions of like, what does Matt mean by that, right? Like, how do we wrap our heads around like what a great leader means? And the same thing I think is true of having a strong mindset or being resilient. We all know, like, yes, I'm going to be resilient, or I'm going to be mentally tough, but then we're like, what am I supposed to do about it, right? It's this, I don't know, a phrase that's it's almost overwhelming to think about. So what I set out to do when I started this business was, okay, let me at least define like what we're driving here, what we're really trying to attain when I'm teaching the tools or talking about the tools or coaching on the tools. And so that's where this definition came out with this, 5-step, I call it 2 things: ignite your mindset model, but also the high performance model. And the first element is confidence. Second, focus. Third is control. Fourth is energy. And the fifth is this consistent action, these high performance habits that we're going to form. So confidence is, when I say, we have to be mentally tough, it starts with confidence. It's this belief that I am enough, that I am worthy, that I can do this, I will do this. That when my confidence is shaken, that I've got the tools to get back and pump myself back up again to take that step forward. So that's that confidence piece, that 100% self-belief. And then I turn to focus, that second element. It's, what am I focused on? Why am I focused on it? What value is it driving? Is this truly where I should be spending my time? Am I distracting myself? And I don't think we'll be able to see the video of this, but I hold up my cell phone. One of the greatest blessings and curses of our decade, right? Am I distracting myself with Facebook, with Twitter, with Instagram, scrolling when I should be working on something else or spending time with someone else? But just getting refocused on truly the important things and taking distractions out of your life. One thing, from an entrepreneur perspective, I used to do all the time, I tell the story, is when I first started my business, because I love creating. I love thinking about like, oh, what program could I do that would help people a lot and all this stuff. So I love developing those types of things. But I would not want to look at my numbers, like my sales numbers. And what I discovered through starting this business is that I was like scared to look at that thing. So I wouldn't focus on it. I would distract myself with building the next program or developing the new idea instead of like, am I bringing in cash, Matt? Am I making the calls? Am I booking the speeches? Like I distract myself because I was afraid of the story it was going to tell. So it's about getting that refocused drive and energy going forward. So that's that piece. But the third element is what I call control, and what I mean is emotional control. So emotions drive basically all of our reactions, right? We have certain thoughts; they're going to lead to some sort of emotion at some point. So it's how do we start channeling those differently into something that's going to move us forward and not hold us back. And then the fourth element is energy. So, my wife has her own nutrition coaching business, and we take a very holistic approach here at Pro Athlete Advantage, meaning it's like we have to talk about nutrition, about sleep, about recovery, about you taking care of yourself if you want to wake up with a ton of energy and carry it through at a high level throughout the day. It's crucial. So we kind of bring those elements in as well. And then finally, the fifth element is it's action. We are such believers in action at our company because, we sit there and think about what we should do but it's no, just take the first step and let's simplify the first step that you're going to take, because action, drives results. Action eliminates fear. Action eliminates, the things that hold you back, just taking that first step.
All good stuff. Well, let's dig a little deeper into that and unpack that for a minute. So confidence comes with a certain, tried and true, or people that have done certain things over and over again. That's yes. Where confidence comes in. Are there any other tips that you would give someone on how to build their confidence to do something that they may not know that they can do, or feel insecure if they could or can't do it? Give us a little bit of talk around confidence.
No, that's a great point. My initial thought as you were asking that question has to do with what's the whole question, like what is the truth? So one thing I see happen a lot, and again, I've experienced in my life too, like this business was born out of like struggles I've had. and that I've worked through and continue to work through. But it's a lot of times when we enter different situations that it might be new or we call into question our ability or something like that, whether we measure up. I always go back to like, what's the truth of the matter here? What are the facts that we need to capture to take our emotions out of it? Because obviously the brain's set up to protect us, right? So at certain points, if we have a certain thought that we could enter fight or flight response, and then we're just worried, I don't know, a bear is going to come out and attack us, and we're not going to really do anything logically going forward. So it's like, okay, let's take I don't like to use like kind of emotion out of it, but let's set the emotion to the side for a moment and just get to the facts of the situation. Because in a lot of situations, what people find is like, okay, you've probably done something similar to this. Yes, every situation is going to be a little bit different by look and feel, but we tend to forget in those moments where we've been successful in the past. So it's let's look at the situation right now and be like, okay, what is truly going on? I don't know, new opportunity comes up. Okay, what's really involved here? And what skills do you have that would benefit this? What are the skills you don't have that may hurt you like going into this? Like let's just boil it down to the facts. And then depending on that, it's like, let's look back a little bit about more facts and gather more data into, okay, most people out there, they've tried new things, and more likely than not, they've been successful with them. Yes, you're going to have failed. I failed lots. I fail all the time. But there's also a lot of successes you've had along the way. So it's like, don't forget all the great things you've done in the past. And let's line that up with what this current situation is and figure out a plan so we can take that next step forward. So I see it all the time in athletics. I see it in athletics, I see it in entrepreneurship, I see it in the corporate world, I see it in all these different situations. But that's where I tend to go is like, what's the truth? Because I can do something with that and figure out what that first step is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. I see a lot of, even my entrepreneur friends, they may not have the confidence to do something yet. So they will spend an inordinate amount of time reading and educating themselves on something, versus some people pull the trigger first and figure out how to do it later.
Yes.
And so I think it's kind of a balance there, right? Where you got to figure out at some point, like, go ahead and do this. You may fail. You may figure it out along the way, but to do nothing and just not move forward definitely holds you back. Okay, so focus is great. I mean, I'm all about making to-do lists and, putting a list of prospects right in front of me every day so I know this is what I need to focus on and not get distracted. It's so easy to get distracted by your inbox.
Yes.
I mean, that's like just a complete intrusion, and we could be busy playing around with our email all day, but you're not focusing on your big picture. Talk to us about the control piece. I'm curious to learn more about that. You said it's emotional.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because, emotions drive so much of our daily activity. So if I get excited about something, chances are I'm going to want to do something around that. Right? If I don't know, just get down about something, get sad, angry about something, I'm going to try to avoid that thing. So it just controls our actions so much. So for me, when I'm talking about emotions, it's how do we prepare ourselves for what inevitably is coming at some point. I always say in different speeches, and you and I talked before we hit record of, you have your 4 children, I have 3 children, and those little beings at 14, 12, and 8, they test my patience and emotions like unlike anything else. I think business is easy compared to raising children, just the way they test you at certain points. And I've said things I shouldn't have said. I've had emotional reactions that I wish I could take back. I think everybody has at some point, especially in relationships. And so for me, when we talk about emotions, it's like, okay, how do I prepare myself for those situations when I know they're coming? So if my, kids are going to be noisy, if they're going to say something that irritates me, it's something disrespectful. My kids are wonderful, but they sometimes do those things, as every kid does. But it's how do I, as the receiver of that information, prepare? So I have what's called these if-then statements. And I call it stacking the cards. And I have people picture, I have a stack of, playing deck cards in front of you. And On one side is if, and the other side is then. If you were to be able to write these out and anticipate the situations where perhaps it's an email, perhaps it's a comment, perhaps it's a child doing something, perhaps it's your husband or wife or partner doing something. But what are the situations where you get thrown off track emotionally and you just get ramped up immediately? And we all know what those are if we're truthful with ourselves. We know, like, the boss is going to send an email and I don't like his or her communication style, so I take offense to it every time that it's sent, even though he or she may not mean something by it. But it's starting to write those things down of like, okay, if this email is sent, and then you flip the card over, then what follows is your ideal reaction that you want to have. And so you're starting to train yourself to react the way that you want to and create these different neural pathways in your brain instead of the way that you always have that are also hardwired neural pathways in your brain. So the choice becomes like, well, do I want to wire my brain the ideal way or do I want to wire it the way it's going right now? So it's just that the way you prepare, I think, is huge. I talk to companies all the time. I remember one in particular, I had done this speech with just this leadership team of this company, and the entire conversation after the speech turned to the way they communicate with each other and how there are misinterpretations of emails. And you could see in the room the emotions just ramping, like immediately, just them thinking about the emails that would come across. So it's more that preparation of how do I want to show up, and then reviewing those and having those, kind of cards. Doesn't have to be a card, it could be on your phone too, but having those available to say, wait a minute, I said I was going to react this way instead of doing it that way. So I'm going to consciously make that choice now and go that path.
And of course, we all know the importance of, mental, like energy, nutrition, sleep. I mean, we hear about that all the time. And I think that's super important. Is there any trend that you see in the people that you coach of the things, is there a common denominator of things that hold people back that you're seeing?
From a like nutrition and kind of energy perspective?
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about in just general success, right? You're coaching lots of different people, but specifically on the CEO, entrepreneur level, is there something that you're seeing across the board that is like a common roadblock that people struggle with?
There's lots of different commonalities when you look at those groups, but the one thing that sticks out at the core of it all is it's back to that confidence piece. It's back to that self-belief. Because when you really think about it and dive in, it's like, we talk about all these other elements of like focus and emotional control, things like that. Well, if I'm, for example, like distracting myself with Instagram or doing something else when I know I should be doing this other thing, a lot of it, if you kind of dive in, has to do with confidence issues, right? So for example, if I'm in a business development role for a company, I might be focused on like something else instead of making calls because I'm not confident in myself to pick up the phone and make those calls. When I started early on, and it's still something I have to watch for because I love to build so much, but it's like, okay, well, I also have to put food on the table and do all that stuff. And I have to do that to impact people's lives. But I might want to distract myself because I don't have the confidence to go make that sales call, right? So we have to be so careful looking deep within ourselves and being like, I'd ask everybody to listen to this podcast, like if you were to stand in front of the mirror and ask yourself, like, do you believe in yourself? Like stare yourself in the eyes and be like, do you believe in yourself? And just listen for the answer. Your answer will come through the thoughts that you have in your head, through your body posture. If it shrinks, maybe that's an indication that you're not. If you start bubbling up, like those are great indications because it all stems from that. Making choices on food, it stems from confidence in yourself, right? Belief in yourself. Like, am I enough? So am I going to pick up the donut or the carrot? I love donuts. Like there's nothing wrong with, it's everything in moderation, in my opinion. But it's also like, it starts with that, am I enough? And let's work on that first because everything stems from that. So even in business, it's like when I want to transition to something else you mentioned earlier, like, if I sell a company, okay, well now your confidence is being tested because what you relied upon, which was potentially great, well now it's gone. So can we go fill the void? But it starts with that confidence piece. It's huge.
So do you think that confidence in the sales piece, like if more entrepreneurs will spend more time making those contacts, reaching out to people that could be prospective clients of theirs, that's really where they're pulling back, or they're not giving into that 100%?
Yes. And I always tell the story about my wife, because I think it's incredible. I mean, she was a school teacher, elementary school teacher when I met her. And then we started having children. So she stayed home for a little bit, but then our son had this eczema skin condition, and it ended up that kind of lit this flame within her around nutrition, because what we found out, he had horrible like eczema, like all over his body, scratching. It was the worst 6 months a kid could have. And I wasn't in his body, but we weren't sleeping either. So it wasn't fun for anyone. But we ended up about 6 months in doing this skin test, prick test, where they test different foods and all this stuff on the baby's back. And so we did it with him, and eggs spiked through the roof, berries spiked through the roof. I mean, he had massive reactions to it. And so we ended up taking out all this food, and within literally like 4 days, his skin was completely clear. So it just shows you like the power of food, which is a whole different story. But so my wife ended up going back to school, getting her holistic nutrition certification, and starting this coaching business. Well, okay, a couple of years into that, she wanted to start an all-women mastermind group. So I'd been running these mastermind groups with some men. I had 2 groups that were all men, one group that was men and women, for a couple of years. And she's like, that's something I want to do. I impact women and talk mindset and have coaching with them and do all this stuff. So she actually got certified in my program. And went and attempted to start a group. And this is where kind of that confidence piece came in, because it was great for her to learn. And she will tell you, like, she is an avid learner. She loves reading books, listening to podcasts, like research. And then it came time with this mastermind group to go like actually do it and do the uncomfortable thing. And that's where we all hesitate. Nobody likes to be uncomfortable at all. I don't like to be uncomfortable. Nobody really does. I have to force myself to be uncomfortable. But that's where the growth happens. And that's where that's where the confidence is built, is stepping through those uncomfortable moments. And whether they succeed or fail, stepping into them and through them. And so for her, I remember she had made a list. It was kind of guiding her, make a list of all the women that you know. And then we have to come up with a script. And then now it's time to make calls. And she would hesitate. And I had to really stay on her to make the calls. And I remember one day I'm like, and I was pretty blunt. I'm like, if you want this thing to go, you have to make the calls. Sit down now, dial the first number. That's your entire goal for today. Call one person. That's it. And she had her script out, and she was so nervous. We were just talking about this. But she made the call. And after she was done with the call, I'm like, so how'd it go? And she's like, it was like easier than I thought. And then it just was this little boost of confidence, because again, the body releases dopamine, which is with achievement and success, and the body craves dopamine. It wants it more and more and more. So even after that one call, she had this momentum start building, and over and over and over again, until she filled her squad, as we call them, her mastermind group of women, and officially launched it. And then she had that for 2+ years, that same group together, which is incredible. But it's, again, those things that like scare you, those uncomfortable moments, it's taking a look at those and being like, okay, it's uncomfortable for a reason, and it's something I need to explore and do.
It's very interesting, because it reminds me of, Dan Sullivan. I don't know if you know Dan Sullivan from Strategic Coach.
Yes.
He talks about first having the commitment, then you get the courage, then you develop the capability, and that leads to confidence. So confidence is almost like the last thing of the 4 C's that you need to achieve greatness. But
it's so true.
It takes those steps to kind of get there.
Well, it's interesting because we have back behind me is, and this is launching in here 2 weeks, but what we call the Momentum Journal, and it's focused on taking action and based on the compounding philosophy, right? That small things add up. And that's the same thing of like, if we don't take action, we'll never see a result. But what a lot of people do is, and I've done in the past, is like we spend so much time thinking about like, okay, well, I'm going to put this whole strategy together and, or this whole deep analysis on goals and the strategy behind it and stuff like that. And we get to the end of that analysis and we're so exhausted that we don't even do the first thing on it. And so we take a different approach. Like with this momentum journal, it's like first of all, like we don't have set like strategic, like super in-depth goals. We're like, come up with a vague goal. I want to lose weight. I want to grow revenue in my business. Great. Whatever. Just come up with something. And then let's start diving in and figuring out, okay, what are the actions necessary to get there? And let's make them so simple that it starts this momentum, starts the snowball rolling down the hill, where we do the one thing, we get the dopamine hit, do the next thing. And lo and behold, we look up and we're going to be at our destination or probably past it. So I always use the example of, I read some article that like the average CEO reads 60 books a year, which I can't wrap my head around that at all. But I heard someone talk about, we use this example in the journal of, I want to read 10 books this year. And I think a lot of people, at least my reaction to that is like, that's a lot of books. Like, where am I going to find the time? And I've got the 3 kids. So I start coming up with excuses. And we take a different approach though. We say, okay, well, forget the 10 books. Could you read 10 pages a day? And most people are like, oh, I can read 10 pages a day. Great. Read 10 pages a day. You do it consistently. You get to the end of the year, it's like 6 to 7 books a year. So it's flipping the paradigm, simplifying it so you can take the action, which then, to your point, leads to that confidence, leads to the self-belief, leads to like, wow, I can do this. I can't stick to it. I'd rather have people, and there's amazing studies, by the way, on this, especially around fitness, but instead of like, I'm going to go to the gym 7 days a week, it's like, no, you're not. But could you do 7 minutes of movement a day for just the first couple of weeks? Because that'll generate this momentum that you have no idea the impact it'll have on you.
That's true. And the author of Atomic Habits, which I read recently, talks about that as well. Experience sharing about the book thing. So I belong to this entrepreneur book club and we read a book a month, which I certainly do. And I've done it for a couple of years now. But it's easy to do if you have audibles and every time you're at the gym or doing a hike or in the car or doing cooking, shopping, whatever, you're listening to something. So I can easily knock out at least 2 books a month, which is 24 a year, add all the podcasts and all the other stuff in there. So I think there is opportunity. It's just about, figuring out the way that it works for you.
Yes. And the thing I like about what you said too is like, and you're making a conscious decision to integrate those into your life.
Plus an accountability group. I don't want to show up to book club and not having read the book, right?
Yes. Yes.
So that's an aspect to it too. You want to have the accountability. But I could speak, as far as the goal setting stuff, I've been doing this for years, but I have to say in this last year, something flipped for me where I heard this piece of information and I was really able to achieve a tremendous amount in this 1 year. Mm-hmm. And I think it all came down to the flow. Figuring out what of the few things that I need to do every single day. And I created a little thing on my calendar where every day I kind of tick off that I did those things. And some of them are related to health, wellness, relationships, and business, right? It's a number of different things.
Yes.
But if we understand the actions that move the needle and we commit to do every day or 4 days a week or whatever that may be. And I also felt that caloring the time on my calendar and setting up the time to actually do those things was for me, key this year, specifically in the last, for 2019. So that's my own.
So you put it on your calendar. How good were you at saying no when something else came in conflict?
So not like no one can touch that space in my calendar, and my team has access to my calendar. So everybody knows what I'm up to. There's no secret. So no one's allowed to book on there. It's reserved.
Yeah. But that's a great point. And that's so crucial because we put stuff on our calendars all the time, but they're negotiable. And that's the problem. It's like they become negotiable. And it's the shift in mindset that whatever's most important in all those different areas, right? In all those different areas, what's most important? At some point, a decision has to be made that this is non-negotiable. I did a video after one where this is, gosh, probably a year ago, I did this video from the gym, just a selfie video, because it just hit me after I was done working out. I'm literally about to walk into the gym and it's 3 p.m. So again, my schedule's all over the place sometimes, where I sometimes squeeze in workouts kind of, I've got a block here, and I look at, okay, I'm gonna work out. So I'll block at like 3 p.m. And this happened to be one of those days. And I got a call like 2:50 saying, from a client being like, hey, can you jump on a call about like this potential business deal or whatever? And I said, unfortunately, I've got a meeting coming up, but can we talk at 4? Absolutely, no problem. No problem at all. Get on at 4. And I did this video because it hit me of like, wow, like to make these things non-negotiable is huge, because I got a great workout, felt great, walked into that call at 4:00 in my workout stuff. And I realized you can't show up to work, not everybody, in workout stuff and do calls, and that had that flexibility. But then a day for me, I was like, no, I'm doing it. And sorry. And I didn't say, I'm going to work out, I'm so sorry. It's like, no, I'm sorry, I have another appointment, and but I can do it later on. And it didn't impact anything in my day other than make me feel really good about myself. So I love that. That's the key. Non-negotiable.
Yes, very true. Okay, so we're winding down to the end of this, but I just want you to tell our listeners a little bit more about what you've got going on specifically for healthcare coaching. I know you have something new that you're rolling out. Talk to us about that, and also tell us where people can find you. Yeah,
absolutely. And it's such a pleasure to be on with you, and so thankful that my colleague or your colleague and I, crossed paths, a couple months ago at this point, and can't wait just to get to know you better. So thanks for having me. I do proathleteadvantage.com is one of the best places to get with me. It's really focused on my corporate side of what I do. So I work with a lot of companies, speaking, doing one-on-one coaching, workshops at different companies in a variety of different industries, financial services, healthcare, IT. It's kind of across the board of different industries I've worked with. But yeah, so what you brought up, the kind of thing I'm really, really excited about right now, and it's actually a partnership with my wife, is we are launching what's called the High Performance School. So if you go to thehighperformanceschool.com, you can check out and see what we're up to. But again, when we try to pull together, like, what are the ingredients to help get people from where they're at to where they want to go, focused on all these different areas of life. My wife and I are such big believers in, we have to understand you can't separate personal and professional life. They're molded, they're one. So it's just, how do we work within what we have in front of us? And so with the High Performance School, we are focused on what happens at work and at home, of course, but we are integrating mind and body. So all the mindset work that I do, mental toughness, resiliency, all the work that I do around those 5 elements we talked about earlier, we're going to focus on and grow individuals in. And then also from a body perspective, my wife's going to talk all about nutrition throughout the program and the membership. And then we're actually integrating movement as well. So we're going to throw different challenges to people to integrate movement, because what a simple walk or a workout or something does to your neuroplasticity in your brain is incredible. I mean, it prepares you to learn. It helps retention. It's incredible, the studies they've done on this stuff. So we're attacking mind and body. And so every month when people join this membership, what we are doing is kind of 3 elements: training, coaching, community. Those are the elements I think will make you successful at everything. So every month on the training piece, we're doing a mindset topic where we're going to dive into the science behind kind of the lesson that we're there to talk about. We're also, every lesson we teach is very simple, right? And you can implement it in minutes a day. So it's not like you need 5 hours a day to figure this stuff out. But 1 mindset topic a month, and then 1 nutrition or movement topic a month, way to improve your body on that side. So we're doing that every month, exercises, handouts, all sorts of stuff. The coaching piece, every week, we're going to have group coaching calls where you can get on and ask anything that you need at work and at home that you need help with and coaching on. You call it a life coach, call it personal coach, call it mindset coach, high performance coach, whatever you want to call it. But we're here to help you kind of move that needle forward, have those weekly group coaching calls. And then we're also having the community. I said before that we are building the CrossFit, for those of you familiar with the CrossFit of personal and professional development. So building this massive worldwide community of like-minded people focused on their personal and professional development. So think of it as kind of a private Facebook page, but within the platform we're using, it's let's start posting wins, posting pictures, posting videos. Let's ask questions. Let's help each other kind of move the needle and get that different perspective that we need to move forward. So yeah, so the highperformanceschool.com we're super, super pumped about. And that's launching here just in a couple weeks here in mid-February.
Awesome. Really great. Thank you so much, Matt. This has been great, very informative. I hope people walk away with a little bit more confidence and a little bit more focus and clarity about how to take themselves and their business to the next level.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for listening. For more information on how to grow your business, visit our website at 4dglobalinc.com. That's the number 4, the letter D as in David, global, GLOBALINC.com. Click on the Owners Academy tab for more videos on sales, marketing, operations, and leadership. If you are in the healthcare space and would like to learn more about how to get started with an employee in India or how to start a risk-free free trial with 4D Global, click on the Get Started for Free button on our website to book a time with someone on our team. See you next time.